They say the deepest cuts are made by the people closest to you. They don't tell you that sometimes, watching the hand that wielded the knife eventually bleed out from its own recklessness is the only salve that truly works. My best friend since kindergarten, the girl who knew my deepest secrets and shared my wildest dreams, didn't just break my heart. She shattered it into a million pieces, stomped on them, and then dared me to pick them up. She stole the boy I loved, not because she loved him more, but because she could. Because she thrived on taking what wasn't hers, even while her own boyfriend was none the wiser. She dragged me into a darkness so profound, I wasn't sure I'd ever see light again. But I did. And 10 years later, while I stand bathed in the light of a love built on trust and loyalty, I watch her stumble alone in the shadows she created, a living testament to the slow, brutal work of karma. And yes, it feels vilely, exquisitely sweet. From the moment I met Jessica in Mrs. Davis's kindergarten class, her bright blue eyes and infectious giggle drew me in. I was a shy, quiet child, easily overwhelmed by the chaos of a room full of 5-year-olds. Jessica was a force of nature, fearless and funny, and she simply adopted me. "You're my best friend now," she declared, handing me a half-eaten crayon. And just like that, we were inseparable. Our childhood was a tapestry woven with shared secrets, whispered dreams under blanket forts, scraped knees healed with shared tears and band-aids, and the unbreakable promise of forever. We navigated elementary, school, middle school, and the awkward transition to high school side by side. Our lives were so intertwined, it felt like we shared a single heartbeat. My family loved Jessica like a daughter, and I was a regular fixture at her house, practically another Ryan kid. We swore we'd be each other's maids of honor, that our kids would be best friends, that nothing, absolutely nothing, would ever come between us. Before we move forward with our story, please take a quick moment to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. Your support means a lot. High school arrived like a whirlwind of confusing emotions, social hierarchies, and the terrifying prospect of dating. While Jessica, naturally confident and effortlessly popular, seemed to glide through it, I still felt like the slightly awkward girl from middle school, albeit with a fiercely loyal best friend by my side. Jessica quickly fell into a steady relationship with Ethan, a sweet, reliable guy who genuinely adored her. They were the quintessential high school couple, and I was happy for her, genuinely happy. Then came Michael. He was in my history class, 2 rows ahead of me. Tall, with kind eyes and a smile that could melt glaciers, Michael was everything I'd ever dreamed of in a high school crush. He wasn't loud or arrogant like some of the other popular guys. He was smart, funny in a quiet way, and had a gentle aura about him. I spent countless hours in class pretending to take notes, while really just admiring the way his hair fell across his forehead, or the easy way he laughed at something the teacher said. My crush on Michael became an all-consuming secret, whispered only to Jessica during late-night phone calls. I poured out my heart, dissecting every glance, every brief interaction, every hopeful sign. Jessica listened, offering advice, telling me to just go for it, promising to be my wingman. She seemed genuinely supportive, and why wouldn't she be? She had Ethan, and I had finally found someone who made my heart flutter in that exhilarating, terrifying high school way. Slowly, tentatively, Michael and I started talking more outside of class. Awkward hallway greetings turned into brief chats, then longer conversations after school by the lockers. There was a spark, a mutual interest that felt fragile but real. He asked about my interests. He remembered things I'd told him, and his smile seemed to linger a little longer when he looked at me. I was walking on air. I shared every detail with Jessica, my voice bubbly with hope, convinced this was the beginning of something special. That's when things started to shift. It wasn't immediate, not a sudden jarring twist. It was insidious, like a slow poison seeping into our friendship. Jessica started mentioning Michael more, casually inserting herself into conversations I was having with him, or finding excuses to be around when he was. At first, I didn't think much of it. She was my best friend, after all. She was just being friendly, being supportive, right? But the glances exchanged between them grew longer. The laughter shared became more intimate, excluding me from the joke. There was a subtle shift in their body language when they were near each other, a pull, a connection that sent a cold dread pooling in my stomach. I tried to ignore it, to tell myself I was being paranoid. Jessica had Ethan. She was my best friend. This wasn't happening. The first time I confronted her, tentatively, my voice shaking, she brushed it off. "Oh my God, Lily, don't be ridiculous. Michael and I are just friends. Ethan would kill me. And besides, he likes you." She said it so convincingly, with such a practiced ease, that I almost believed her. Almost. The seed of doubt had been planted, though, and it began to sprout in the fertile ground of my insecurity. The flirting became undeniable. Little touches, inside jokes, lingering looks. It was happening right in front of me, under my nose, facilitated by my supposed best friend. My conversations with Michael grew shorter, more strained. He seemed distracted, his focus shifting whenever Jessica was nearby. The spark, I thought, we had felt extinguished, replaced by a heavy sense of dread. The day I saw them together, hand in hand, walking off campus after school, felt like the world stopped spinning. My breath hitched, and a wave of nausea washed over me. Jessica saw me. She didn't look guilty. She looked triumphant. She offered a small, almost imperceptible smirk before turning her head back to Michael, squeezing his hand. I ran the other way, tears blurring my vision. I didn't go home. I ended up in the deserted park we used to play in as kids, sitting on the swing set, feeling utterly alone. The unbreakable bond felt like a cruel joke. The promises of forever were ash in my mouth. Later that night, Jessica called. I initially didn't want to answer, but some twisted part of me needed to hear it from her, needed to understand. "Lily," she said, her voice annoyingly casual. "Look, I know you're probably upset, but Michael and I are together now." My voice was barely a whisper. "What about Ethan?" A pause. A sigh. "Oh, well, that's complicated. But Michael and I, it just happened. We have this connection. A connection she actively pursued, knowing how I felt, knowing I thought I had a connection with him, knowing she was betraying her boyfriend. The audacity was breathtaking. How could you, Jessica? He was my crush. You knew that. We talked about him for months." "Crush, Lily. Not boyfriend. You guys weren't even dating," she said, her tone hardening slightly. "And feelings change. What can I say? Michael likes me. I like him." The casual cruelty of her words, the complete lack of remorse, was like another punch to the gut. "And Ethan?" I pressed, needing her to acknowledge the full scope of her deceit. Another sigh. "I'll deal with Ethan later. This is about Michael and me now." It became clear in that conversation, and the agonizing days and weeks that followed, that Jessica wasn't just pursuing Michael. She was actively taking him from me. It wasn't just about a new relationship. It was about power, about proving she could have whatever she wanted, even if it came at the expense of her oldest friend and her current boyfriend. What followed was a period of my life I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. The depression hit hard, and fast. It wasn't just sadness. It was a suffocating blanket of despair that stole my energy, my appetite, my ability to care about anything. Getting out of bed felt like climbing a mountain. Going to school, where I had to see Jessica and Michael together, laughing, touching, being a couple, was a daily torment. I avoided the hallways. They frequented, ate lunch alone in the library, and felt a constant knot of anxiety and pain in my chest. To make matters worse, Jessica seemed to revel in my misery. Instead of showing any sensitivity, She would casually drop details about her relationship with Michael, stories about dates, hand-holding, inside jokes, always delivered with that same casual, almost smug tone. She told me about late-night drives, about them sneaking around, likely when she was supposed to be with Ethan, though she never explicitly admitted that part to me directly. It felt less like sharing, and more like calculated jabs, designed to twist the knife deeper. It was as if she wanted me to know how happy she was with the boy she took from me, how easily she had replaced our friendship with this new relationship, built on deceit. It was psychological warfare, and I was losing. I stopped hanging out with other friends. My grades plummeted. My parents were worried, but I couldn't articulate the depth of the pain, the feeling of being so utterly betrayed by the one person I thought would always be in my corner. I felt worthless, unlovable, convinced that if my best friend could discard me so easily, there must be something fundamentally wrong with me. The friendship, of course, died a slow, painful death. We stopped talking, stopped seeing each other, outside of the unavoidable sightings at school. The silence that grew between us was louder than any argument we ever had. It was the sound of a bond being severed, of a shared history being poisoned. My depression was a heavy shroud I carried, for months, maybe even over a year. I withdrew from everything and everyone. It felt like I was stuck in a dark tunnel, unable to see the end. Professional help, talking to a therapist, slowly started to chip away at the darkness, helping me process the betrayal and understand that Jessica's actions were a reflection of her character, not my worth. It was during this slow climb out of the abyss that I reconnected with David Chen. We had been friends in junior school, sharing a love for cheesy sci-fi movies and terrible puns. We'd drifted apart in high school as our interests diverged and social circles shifted, but we were always friendly. One day, I ran into him at the local bookstore. We started talking, initially just catching up on school and life. David was everything Jessica wasn't. He was kind, patient, and genuinely listened when I spoke. He didn't try to fix me, but simply offered his presence, his quiet support, and his terrible, wonderful puns that somehow managed to make me smile for the first time in a long time. We started hanging out regularly, grabbing coffee, watching those cheesy sci-fi movies we loved, studying together. Slowly, tentatively, a different kind of spark began to flicker between us. It wasn't the intense, anxiety-inducing crush I'd had on Michael. It was a warm, comforting glow built on years of casual friendship and a newfound, deeper connection. David saw the real me, the one hidden beneath the layers of pain and insecurity. He was gentle with my still fragile heart, never pushing, just being there. Falling in love with David was like finally coming home after a long, brutal journey. It wasn't a dramatic, swooping romance, but a gradual, steady unfolding of affection, trust, and mutual respect. He knew about Jessica, about the betrayal, about the depression. He didn't judge. He just held my hand and helped me believe that I was worthy of love and happiness. We started dating officially the summer after graduation, and 10 years later, we were still going strong. We navigated college together, started our careers, adopted a ridiculously fluffy cat, and built a life filled with quiet joy, shared laughter, and unwavering support. David became not just my partner, but my anchor, my best friend in the truest sense of the word. The scar left by Jessica's betrayal was still there, a faint line across my heart, but it no longer dictated my life. During those 10 years, news of Jessica trickled in through the grapevine of mutual acquaintances or the carefully curated highlight reel of social media. After Michael, there was a string of relationships, each one more dramatic and short-lived than the last. She seemed to hop from one person to another, leaving a trail of broken hearts and chaos in her wake. While I was building a life with David, brick by steady brick, Jessica's life seemed to be a constant demolition site. She chased fleeting highs, dramatic declarations of love that would fizzle out in months, leaving behind messy breakups and unresolved issues. The loyalty she had so easily discarded in high school seemed to be a foreign concept to her. I remember hearing about her engagement to a guy she'd known for 3 months, only for it to be called off dramatically via a public social media spat a month later. Then there was the relationship where rumors circulated about her continued infidelity, mirroring her actions with Michael and Ethan. There were whispers of financial instability, of burning bridges with friends, of a general sense of restlessness and unhappiness that seemed to cling to her. My revenge wasn't something I actively plotted or orchestrated. It was simply living my life. It was the quiet, profound satisfaction of building something real and lasting with David, a stark contrast to the instability that defined Jessica's relationships. It was the knowledge that while I had faced the darkness and emerged stronger, she seemed trapped in a cycle of her own making. One particularly poignant moment came a few years ago. I was at a friend's wedding, a mutual friend who had remained friendly with both of us, though our paths rarely crossed anymore. Jessica was there, looking outwardly glamorous but with a hardness around her eyes I didn't remember from high school. She was with a new guy who looked utterly bewildered by her dramatic pronouncements and attention-seeking behavior. We made polite small talk, the kind you make with someone you have a long, complicated history with, but are now essentially strangers. She asked about my life, and I spoke briefly about David, about our home, our careers. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. Just stating the simple facts of my stable, happy existence felt like a quiet victory. Then, she started talking about her life, her current relationship, hinting at the drama, the passion, the inevitable challenges they were facing. It was clear she was trying to project an image of excitement and intensity. But beneath the surface, I saw the same pattern of chaos, the same lack of genuine connection that had plagued her for years. She even made a veiled comment about how boring, stable relationships could be, a clear jab at my life with David, a pathetic attempt to diminish what I had because she couldn't replicate it. It was hard to not feel a surge of satisfaction. This woman, who had deliberately hurt me, who had thrown away a lifelong friendship for a fleeting high school romance and a pattern of deceit, was clearly unhappy. Her pursuit of external validation and superficial excitement had left her with a string of broken relationships and a restless, unfulfilled life. The real revenge wasn't seeing her suffer. Not exactly. It was seeing the natural consequences of her actions. It was understanding that character matters, loyalty matters, integrity matters. And when you build your life on a foundation of deceit and disregard for others, that foundation is inherently unstable. I remember another instance, hearing through the grapevine that she was going through a particularly nasty breakup, involving accusations and even some minor legal threats over shared property. It sounded messy, painful, and entirely predictable given her history. I didn't feel joy at her pain, but a profound sense of justice. This was the harvest she was reaping from the seeds she had sown years ago. The chaotic energy she put out into the world was coming back to her, amplified. David, bless his heart, understood the complex emotions I felt. He knew it wasn't about wanting her to suffer, but about the validation of seeing that living with kindness and integrity, even when you've been deeply hurt, ultimately leads to a more fulfilling life than living selfishly. He was my rock, my constant reminder of what true loyalty and love felt like. Looking back now, from the vantage point of a decade of happiness with David, the pain of high school feels distant, almost like a bad dream. The scar is still there, a reminder of a time when I learned a brutal lesson about trust and betrayal. But it no longer defines me. Jessica's life, as far as I know, continues to be a series of ups and downs, marked by unstable relationships and a seeming inability to find lasting peace or genuine connection. She still projects an image of vibrant, dramatic living on social media, but the cracks are visible if you know where to look. My revenge wasn't a single act. but a decade of building a life she couldn't replicate. A life built on the very values she discarded. It was finding happiness with David. A happiness that felt earned, solid, and true. It was watching from a distance as karma, that silent, relentless force, did its work. And there is a quiet, deep satisfaction in knowing that while she may have won that battle in the high school hallway, I won the war for a happy, stable life. The best revenge, it turns out, isn't about causing pain, but about finding your own peace and watching the universe settle the score. And sometimes, the universe is a truly magnificent, albeit sometimes vile, scorekeeper. Thank you for watching. Please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Thanks for your support.